Welcome, everybody. Let me start off by saying season's greetings and a happy new year. It is 2019, and this is our first episode of the Grind Path to Pro podcast. As usual, I have some amazing guests with me today. Very special episode. We're focusing on the caster path to pro. So I'm going to start off with my usual ritual. I'm going to ask each of our guests, who are you and why should we care? So, Tonello, let's start with you. Who are you? And
right off the bat. So
Thank you
starting
for
off poorly, but we'll take it. Hi guys, I'm Hammy T, Ham Tornado, and I'm a color caster for NA Contenders. I'm part of the BoopNado duo. So I yell over video games, and you should care. Because if you want delicious Overwatch casting, this is the premier meat weather-based phenomenon version. So you definitely want to tune in.
Nice. Well, speaking of BoopNado, Boop, who are you? Why do we care?
I am, as you said, I am a Booposaurus. I'm a play-by-play caster with Ham on North American Contenders. I got my start a while ago at the Boop of the Week on Contender Season 0, if you guys remember that. And, went through the process of learning how to be a caster and, doing the grind and the name of the podcast. Hey. And then ended up on North American Contenders with Ham.
Nice. Next up, we have Pixie. Who are you? Why do we care?
I like how you say ended up like it's just an accident. I'm Pixie. I cast Pacific Contenders. I live in the anus of the world, and I have an opinion on literally everything to make up for the fact that I'm not very interesting.
Wow.
Hey, that's how you get hired.
Well, hopefully that'll keep the podcast super interesting. Finally, we have Tonello. Who are you? Why do we care?
Yeah, hello. I am Tonello. I am a caster for South American Contenders, Overwatch for sure. And I don't really know why you should care because I think I have this lack of words in my mind because of my low level of English. But anyways, if you're ever interested in South American teams, you should care because I know them a lot. Yeah.
Nice. I think that you're awesome. You've helped BGG a hell of a lot. So I've never met you personally, but I think you're pretty cool. Let's jump straight into it. So I'm going to start off, as you guys know, the format is I do a very short interview with each of our guests, just asking them a little bit about their background, and then we're going to jump straight into our topics. So let's start off with Ham and Boop. I started with you guys in the beginning, so we'll just carry on with that trend. So I know that you guys are somewhat intertwined in your casting journey, especially now that you're in North America. Has it always been like that? How did you each start out, and then how did you find each other?
Why don't I start, since I started a little earlier than Ham did, and we'll talk about our meeting and melding of hearts. And so, like I said, I started casting Hearthstone about 3 to 4 years ago because someone didn't show up at a LAN and they needed a replacement, and my husband nominated me. Yeah, he was like, this guy wants to cast, because we had talked about it, right? And in order to actually do it, I think that was like the trigger that needed to be pulled. And so I ended up subbing in for this guy. The guy who owned the LAN center really liked me and then had me do a couple other Hearthstone tournaments. And then Overwatch came out. And then once Overwatch came out, he's like, hey, man, let's have you cast that. And then I casted for them once or twice, managed their team for like a week. Well, because back then Overwatch teams lasted, even today, that lasted like a week. And then after that, I started working with Carbon Entertainment. So this LAN center gave me a contact, Carbon, who ended up running OCS, the Carbon series, in Contender Season 0. And so that was like my first like real taste of, real good production, like going to a studio. And through Carbon is where I met Ham when we did Wawa's Boot Camp together through the introduction of Left Guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Boop has been has had like all 10 toes in esports for ages. I'm kind of more of the newcomer of the duo, but I started casting a little over a year ago actually, and Overwatch is my first game, so it's actually my first esport just period. But it good video game choice. And I started out just like casting in my basement. Like I didn't know anybody. I didn't know BGG. And I was literally just like watching VODs and then like pausing it, rewinding it back, and then like saying the exact same thing again over the VOD. Wow. But after that, you kind of get into the groove. I was like, there were back then, like, BGG was a lot smaller than it is now. And I I would just like cold call essentially teams and be like, hey, can I cast your scrims? And then, but then we heard about BGG, joined up, helped develop like Scrim Nights, which is one of our main offerings now. And we moved all the way into casting Open Division. I remember like the first season of Open Div, we only cast like semifinals and finals, and we almost didn't cast finals because Moosh fell asleep because we had like 45 minutes of sleep between like the 4 of us that were organizing this, and he fell asleep and couldn't hear his phone, so we almost didn't cast grand finals. But then he got up, he was like, oh, I'm up, and that went forward, and then it's kind of just taken off from there. And in February or so, got the chance to cast with Boop at Wawa's Boot Camp, the Amateur Rising, and it was just an instant. It was like when you get like 2 really strong magnets and you're not supposed to like touch them together, because once they're touched, they're never gonna like, they're only gonna separate with very, very, very great difficulty. That was like us. Yeah.
That's kind of adorable, I'm not gonna lie. And you guys have always been really cute though. Whenever we do the open division games, you're always in the same room, and it sometimes causes havoc. Like how did that come about? Do you guys just happen to live in the same area? How does
Yeah, Colorado has a weirdly high amount of people involved in esports, in my opinion. Like Monty's from Colorado. A lot of people love being in Colorado, and the 2 of us happen to be from Colorado as well. And so she lives about an hour and a half away. So I have a house here in Boulder, and so she comes up here whenever we had broadcast days, and we just hang out. That's like a big thing. We're also like really, really good friends, and it's really funny when Twitch chat thinks we're married, because that's really funny. And so, but we're like really good friends. We watch Overwatch all the time. That definitely comes into our casting when we do cast professionally.
And you guys have never, like, since you guys found each other, you haven't really like experimented with other people, not in a marriage sense, obviously.
Well, you know, like you got to keep the casting marriage fresh. So,
Hey.
you know, just like go around and browse. Not really. I don't think we've needed to cast with other people. Like anytime we've had other partners or, you know, flex to like different roles or stuff, like I actually really enjoy doing play-by-play. I did it with one of Jane's tournaments of all things, right? It was just super fun to kind of like break out of the norm. But yeah, I mean, Boop said it and I was like super flattered, because I remember when I first met Boop, I was like so intimidated by how funny he was. It's like, can't possibly be as funny as Boop, right? But yeah, he was like, oh, it was like meeting my husband, right? Like we just instantly really liked each other, and I don't think we've really needed to look beyond, right?
I'm gonna cry for sure.
I'm almost so beautiful.
That's so cute, man. I had something that I felt was like that with a caster, and then one day he started casting with another caster. So
Oh my god,
yeah.
Jason.
Yeah, we know who that is. That's you, sir. Anyway, let's that is a cute story. I would like to hear Pixie, what about you? How did you get into casting?
I started in League of Legends. I got involved. There was a really random organization in America called DWI, stands for Don't Worry About It. I'm pretty sure it doesn't exist anymore. Someone's looking it up right now. I can hear that. And I just like, I dropped in one day, and the guy running it was like, by the way, with the OC server launching, I'm looking to expand over there. It's like, if you know anyone, let me know. And I reached out. I was like, yeah, I'm like there. I could maybe help get involved. He's like, congratulations, you are now head of OCE.
Wow.
And I ran on a Friday night their kind of like flagship event, which was like a drafting thing. You'd have people of mixed elos in the teams that was relatively balanced. Anyone could turn up and play. And part of the gimmick of this was that it was streamed and casted. And for the very first one, I was like, well, guess I'll just cast it myself. And I suppose similar to Boop, right? Like this, I think this is how it happens for pretty much any caster. Like when you actually have done just any actual broadcast, like someone hears it and they're like, hey, do you want to do this one as well? And it just kind of snowballs from there. And then suddenly someone asks you to go on Contenders by complete accident.
By accident. Oh shit, we didn't mean Pixie. We meant that other Pixie, the League of Legends guy.
Oh, the guy with the Pixie cast handle on Twitter.
Yeah.
Your delivery is some of the best I know, man. You're cracking me up.
I'm not intimidated by how funny Boop is. I'm just saying that.
You have that magic, man. I don't have that shield around my heart.
I'm starting to get intimidated. I think like this is
by your own hilarity.
Oh, this is going personal for sure. This is going personal.
So now you're doing PAC, and I don't actually know how many seasons have you been involved with Overwatch specifically.
I've been in Overwatch from the start. It was it all kind of happened at the right time. Overwatch launched, and right around that same time, the work kind of dried up over here for League of Legends. Like it only just started being paid work in the first place. I'd done like 2 paid gigs total. And there was just no trajectory forward. I wasn't really able to get in with Riot OCE because they're based out of Sydney. I'm in Auckland, and for some reason, people think that those are closer than they are. It's like a 4-hour flight, so Americans are like, what? It's just one side of Texas to the other, but it is somewhat significant here. Like, it's a completely different country. It wasn't feasible for me to move at the time. I technically got on OCS, which is their equivalent of what Contenders is to Overwatch League. It's literally Oceanic Challenger Series, but I couldn't even do that broadcast because it would have been remote. It just wasn't going to work, and everything just kind of dried up. I ended up wanting to pick up Overwatch anyway, and then also got offered a tournament doing Overwatch unpaid. It was just a small scale thing at the time, and work continued existing for Overwatch and not in League of Legends. So I've just sort of naturally ended up fully transitioning to Overwatch, and it's been great. So I've been sort of involved in Pacific for a while. About February 2017, I was involved in a tournament, the Oceanic Summer Series. There was a lot of pressure to open it up to Southeast Asian teams, and the organizers eventually did. So they had maybe 3 or 4 qualifiers for all the Australian, New Zealand teams, and then also one for Southeast Asian teams. There wasn't as many in total, but that was kind of our first exposure to like the wider region. And then we had a team out from here at the time called Fusion Girls, now more known as Blank, who started playing in the Pacific region. They started playing expressly overseas in Southeast Asian tournaments. Then OPC came around. I ended up involved in that, and it's just kind of stayed there. So I've kind of got 2 home regions in a sense, because I've been casting PAC since its beginning as like a major competitive region. And also I kind of belong to the OC region as a whole, which in Contenders terms is just listed as AU.
Cool. Sorry guys, we are just gonna have to take like a quick break. Our producer's OBS has crashed, so we're gonna do a hard reset, and we'll be back in a minute. It's all good though. We are back, and we're gonna move straight along. We did hear from our resident Hobbit about his rise to casting fame, so now we're gonna move on to Tonello.
Hey, we can use that word. You can't use that word.
Now,
how could you?
How could you?
Watch. Just like this. Hobbit. Anyway, Tonello, tell us a little bit about how you became a caster and how you got to SA Contenders.
Sure. It was actually out of nowhere. I was just in college, and I wanted to be, among my friends who played Dota, but I played League of Legends at the time. It was like 2014, I believe. It wasn't that long ago. And and then I started trying to be among them, but I was so bad at Dota 2. I've never been good at MOBAs at all. So I was like, what can I do to be with you? What can I do to interact with you? And then I started streaming some games because my PC was kind of good, and it's still the same PC, but it was enough, to stream. And I started streaming, and then I started casting. I didn't really have any technique, like anything in terms of theory of casting. I was just shouting and losing my voice every day, but it was cool. It was good. It was fun, at least. Many people are like, man, this won't take you anywhere because we are in South America, so just wake up. But I was kind of a believer, and I started just studying and getting better and better, and improving a lot. And then I started casting League of Legends, some amateur tournaments, and nothing paid. Like Pixie said, it's kind of, or at least here in South America, it is kind of hard to start being paid, like getting paid for anything you do in esports right in the beginning of it. But then I started just going on, and suddenly Overwatch came out in Visetti, which who works with me right now on Contenders. He was like, man, we have to cast this game. We really have to. And I was like, what is it about? He said me like, it's it's a Blizzard game. It's a new Blizzard game, and it looks like Team Fortress or something. So we should be headed for it because it's gonna be good. It's gonna be great. It was like in 2016, and then we started studying the game. And actually, it's kind of funny because I didn't really have a copy of the game until 1 month after its launch. So what we would do was like he would cast and stream the game and play by play cast it because I used to be the League of Legends play by play caster and he used to be the color caster. But then we had to change because I didn't have a copy of the game or I didn't have a key to the beta phase. So he would stream it and share it with me through Skype, and then I would color cast it through Skype. It was that hard for us, but eventually we just managed to make it work, and we went on doing some tournaments and just interacting with the community. And we never gave up actually, because a lot of other casting duos just gave up Overwatch in the beginning when it started getting a little bit harder, when Blizzard still didn't really have announced anything. So we're like, man, is this gonna happen or is this not gonna happen? And we just took to Overwatch and continued growing up in it and making content and just bringing people together and trying to help teams. As Pixie said, it's kind of, I don't know if it was Pixie or Boop anyways, but someone said that teams tend to not last long, right? And here in South America, that was the case too. We were not with really long-lasting teams, and then me and Vasek were like, no man, please just keep together and just do this and just do that, try to change it and try to go on Twitter and try to be a little more social with people. So we, along with the community, were like kind of mentors to people in some way, and everything worked well. Blizzard really set its foot here, and then Contenders started and we were called. So we're now living out of it. We're just living to cast. We live in São Paulo, which is not the capital city, but it is the largest city of Brazil. So we pretty much live in one of the largest cities in the world because of casting, and it is extremely rare and difficult to do it in South America. So we feel very happy and like very blessed. And now we really want to go on with Overwatch. I mean, I don't know if Overwatch League is coming to Brazil in terms of a Portuguese broadcast or Spanish broadcast in duo, because everything happens in duo here. We don't really have only Portuguese or only Spanish. We have to have both because it's South American. So a lot of Spanish speakers out there. But we're really looking forward to continuing with Overwatch. And for sure, I say we because I've been working with him for a long time. But I mean, I am really looking forward to continue with Overwatch as well.
Got a joke for you, Tonello.
Oh boy.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, I've got a. What's a Brazilian commentator's favorite Overwatch comp?
Oh.
Goats!
Why, man? This is not how it works.
Collective growth.
Thank you.
Okay,
Oh,
hopefully
man,
he
come on.
won't
I mean,
be here all week.
That is basically. I've never watched your broadcast. I'm sorry, but that's kind of how I imagine it going down.
Absolutely not.
It's kind of funny because we have some teams here in Brazil that, or at least in South America, that they were like, man, we're not going to play goats. We have the skill not to play goats. Like base tryhards, which were the Brazilian South America. What the hell? Brazilian World Cup team. They were like, Brazil, man, I don't really want to play. Yeah, Brazil Gaming House before. Right. Now they're called base tryhards, and they're like, man, we're not into goats. We do not want to play goats at all. And they didn't, and they actually won. But now they are, a lot of them were. But now they're like being forced into playing goats because it's playoff, and people are like, man, we have to do what we have to do. But some time ago, they were like, we're not playing goats, and they didn't play goats, and still they are unbeaten. So they didn't lose anything till now. So they're gods,
They're gods. It's actually true though. South America is one of the regions that I have seen the least amount of goats in. It's been a lot of fun to watch and be a part of. I think that's one of the reasons.
We've been kind of blessed with that as well. We're kind of blessed with a region that does not see anywhere near as much goats as anyone else. Like we still see a bit of it, but I mean, I think I've seen more like genuinely. I've seen like a bunch of like triple DPS versus quad DPS, which is just a trip, honestly.
Welcome to the future, man. You see,
I know.
I don't know when
You
we're talking
can't-
about the patch, but like
That's the thing. I'm just out here like this is just me casting from the future, all y'all. Anyway,
Yeah, pretty
I'll
much.
go
And
into more of it later on, I'm sure.
you're like the most in the future person on this podcast. Fun fact, guys, it's already tomorrow for him. So he knows what's coming.
6:30 in the morning. These guys, while we were doing sound check, they've been watching the sunrise behind me.
Behind your
There was-
Christmas
Yeah,
tree.
behind your
Christmas tree.
Nice. All right, so I love that though. I love that you all have different but equally impassioned stories about how you managed to get into casting. It's really exciting to see. And I think I'm going to jump straight into, I know the topic order, actually this is in the topic order. My order is wrong. I'm going to jump straight into what it takes to be a caster. So obviously all of these questions are pretty open. You guys can answer as and when you see fit. You can argue as much as you want. I'd actually like to see a lot of arguing because I like to spectate. I like to
Yeah,
referee.
sure.
Just stir the pot.
Well, let me tell you about Rasputin.
I was going to say, I think the most important piece of casting is good comedic timing.
hey.
I really thought there was going to be something after that, and then there wasn't, and I was like, "Oh, that was fine." Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I'll go ahead and start off. I think what we'll all say for sure is all of us have grinded our asses off. We've done tournaments for 3 people. We've done tournaments for 10,000 people, right? And we tried just as hard for both of those tournaments. And if you're not hitting max every single time you cast and you're pushing yourself, you're never going to get better. And so I think like as a caster to phone it in is when you start taking steps back, right? And you should constantly be working to improve and get better no matter how many eyes are on you, because that's not why we do this, right? We do this because I love this, right? I didn't want to use my 1 F word for this. And so like
1.5.
I know I got my half, but like I just like really want to make sure that everyone knows that this is hard. This is not an easy lifestyle. And the reason why we're here is we grinded, we got better, we were prepared for that timing, but there were also a lot of other people who didn't. And if you want to be successful, you got to be one of those people that do, right? And you just got to grind it out. And you'll get there. You can't teach passion, but you can learn skills, right? So if you're not passionate about it at first, I don't really think that you deserve to be here.
That's one of the things I wrote down here.
Yeah,
you know what?
ahead,
Fight
dude.
me on this one. Thank you. I think like all technical skills of casting aside, the most important thing is, as we've kind of put it, just determination out the ass. If you are watching this right now and you are considering casting, first of all, stop considering it. Second of all, I feel kind of mean saying this because I'll be honest, if someone had told me this from the outset, I probably would have gone, fuck that, there's my one. That's what I would have said. I can't say it twice. I would have said F that. And but like you're going to do it for like a good 2, 3, maybe even more years before anyone even considers paying you. And even then, maybe not. Even then, the first pay you might get is like, we'll cover your parking and dinner. And look, that's just the nature of the beast, right? Like you're going to do this around, I mean, even now I'm still doing this around a part-time job, right? Like it, on the whole, it beats flipping burgers, but you are going to be flipping burgers for a long, long time. And you're going to have to love it. You're going to like, I used to, in fact, this even during OPC, I would work, Monday night, Tuesday night, then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday daytime. Then on Friday, I would go home, sleep for 4 hours, get up for OPC, and then do that for 3 days. Actually, 4 days. I would do 3 or 4 days, depending on what week it was, and then go and work Monday night. And that was, the same kind of unsociable hours that I'm doing now. I did not have a day off at all, and that was as recent as 2017. That's just the nature of the beast, man. It is tough. I think there is a genuine amount of merit in the argument, like, you got to be good. But honestly, sometimes you can get gigs just by being the last person there. I think, Tonello, you kind of touched a bit on this when you were introducing yourself. Like, people just kind of gave up in your region. I had a similar thing. I'm in a small region. There wasn't much work. People just kind of gave up. They're like, yeah, even if I love it, I just can't stick it out. So if you want it to be you, you have to be the one that sticks it out. You've got to be the last guy sitting in the waiting room.
Yeah, for sure. And
it's
actually,
not a
I think
sprint, right?
Yeah,
it's a
most
marathon.
people can't handle that.
Yes, and also one thing very important, I think that you said we have to do this for like 2 or 3 years without getting paid, or quite
or
not
more.
getting paid, or more. But I think that one thing
definitely
that
more if you're bad.
For sure. I think one thing that we have to tell as well is that during that time you create a network, right? And that's very important as well, because you can be the best caster in the world, and we have some occasions and some situations where great casters are not really employed at like on the best tournaments because of maybe their network or something that I don't know what could be. But networking in this job is like essential for sure, because
I don't like the idea of getting paid exposure, but that is what it is, right? Like the exposure does actually mean something. No one's gonna hire you if they've never heard you before. You've got to have something out there.
That's like one of those things that you just have to accept, that as a caster, your biggest product is you, right?
Yes.
You don't get to sign off, right? Go into work, clock in at the 9, get out at the 5, right? You have to be on all the time. Social media presence is a huge thing. Like you were saying, Tonello, you're helping the teams. You have to understand that like your product is not actually just your casting. It's the content that you put out. It's how you interact with the community. That's kind of like one of the great things that I love so much about Broadcast.gg is we help make that a little easier, right? Like you have all these resources, these people that you can kind of go and pick their brains, and more minds are always going to be stronger than you just kind of theory crafting in your basement, because that was where I was like too, right? You come in, you have all these wacko hours, and it really is the grind. Everybody comes into it super hot, thinking that I'm gonna make it in like the first 3 months, and that's gonna be me. I'm gonna be the trailblazer, something. And yeah, you can get a ton of work done off of that initial burst of energy and enthusiasm, but it is gonna be like, yo, my internet. So I'm at Katrina's house right now, like loving. Thank you, Katrina. Shout outs. But back in Colorado, I live out in like the boonies, and literally my internet speed is like 10 down, 1.3 up. It is impossible to stream, do anything there. You can barely play Overwatch. So one of the first tournament that I ever cast was with Leg from EU Contenders way back when we were both on that grind. And I would go to my friend's house, cast in his kitchen at 1 o'clock in the morning, Mountain Time, for 6 hours, 17 days in a row for this Nexus Cup tournament. And like, God, it was one of the worst things I've ever done. Your entire life upside down. But you get so many. One, it's like, this is kind of just what the grind is. Two, I was casting like Marvel, Michelle, Nene, Ding, like before they ever hit like Korean contenders. And like trying to take that initiative is like what's going to be putting you ahead, and then sticking with it is what's going to help you cross the finish line.
Actually, that was one of the things I got out of OPC was like, I mean, that was a huge tournament, terrible hours, and we were in a basement that used to be a nightclub. Like it was just the most bumfuck venue it could possibly.
Did it still have like orange shag carpeting?
Oh no, it was under construction while we were in it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to do like well, I did this kind of thing. Like I'm not trying to one up you or anything, but like I kind of call that.
No shoes on.
Everyone and I call that tournament the hyperbaric time chamber of casting, because that was during the tournament embargo. We were like the only region getting tournaments, and motherfucker did we have a tournament. We were cast like in that one chunk of time, I think we casted more hours than we have over this entire year 3 seasons of Contenders, just for how much fucking content it was. And that was great. It gave us a real head start on figuring out how to cast Overwatch.
Yes, for sure. But also I think that like all of you told us many stories of when you had to grind and everything like at the beginning. But I think that there's a fine line that you cannot forget, which is, I'm not gonna do this anymore because I'm already here. Like I'm already a contender, so I'm not gonna accept some things anymore. And I think that to some point is correct, but also that to some point might be a little bit dangerous once you get kind of lazy because I'm already here, So
you're above work.
Yeah, I really believe that I still have to keep that fire from the beginning within you. Otherwise, you're like you're gonna be I mean, people are gonna get better than you just because we're kind of lazy, or just because you thought you were something you were actually weren't. So that's also important. We are in a position that it doesn't really matter if we say to someone like, "Oh, I've been casting for 4 years." It's like, it doesn't matter. Like, okay, you have experience. You can behave in front of a camera. You can just say beautiful words, but it doesn't actually really matter, at least in some positions, because there might be someone that's been grinding more than you, and then lose their
I think
job.
it's good to assume that there is someone grinding more than you.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. You cannot just assume that you're better than anyone. You
Gotta
still
stay
have to keep
hungry.
this grind. You still have to like treat yourself as you were in need of these basement tournaments, or in need of these early morning tournaments to cast. And I think that's very
Actually,
important as well.
if y'all might indulge me for a moment as well, because I think we have actually talked quite a bit here about like the personality traits. I actually think that is like the rarer part of the whole equation, but I think it is also worth actually talking about some of the mechanical side of it. I'm going to speak specifically to Overwatch, because the reality is it's actually quite different for a lot of games. I think Overwatch is probably like the hardest game you could choose to start in right now, but by all means do it. Like, don't let that dissuade you. I mean, you know, if we can do it, then anyone can, and I do mean that sincerely. Your read of the game is very important. That's just being able to look at a screen and know what's going on, who's winning the fight, who's not. It's not just who came up on the kill feed, who's on low health. It is also those things. It's, you know, what ults are coming up, where a team's positioned, and you've just got to like look at a screen and just pick all that up. Now, look, you'll get that in time as well. Like, no one's going to have that from the outset. That is one of those things that comes with practice, but that's an important skill. Converting all of that into info, ideally a coherent sentence. Some you can't get away with an incoherent one, I'm not going to lie, but in all seriousness, like there is a real speed of thought. I think this is another thing that not everyone just innately has. You need a not terrible voice. I'm sorry, but if you sound like Pee Wee Herman, you do not have a career. And like this is and no one wants to be told that, and no one's gonna say it. Like it's just one of those things. It's way too brutal to just be like, you just don't have a good voice. Sorry. And you can have every other part of the skill set and not have a good voice, and you still don't get a career. Tough nuts. And then you've got to do all that and actually be entertaining. You've got to actually be entertaining and worth listening to. This is the core concept of all casting. You must, in some way, shape, or form, enhance the viewing experience, right? And that can mean a lot of things. You could be funny, you could be insightful, you could be, you know, really excitable. You could have what I call like the best friend effect. There are a lot of casters who actually follow this specific ethos. They're like, yeah, like, you know, when you're watching a sports game and you don't know much about it, but your mate does, and he's like, yeah, and I'll see about that thing there. You know, when they do this, they're trying to do this, and they're just sitting next to you on the couch, kind of explaining it to you, and you're like, oh yeah, no, I see that now. I see that now. That is a thing that casters do. Like, Kobe from League of Legends, I think, is a great example. He's like, yeah, I just wanted to seem like your friend who knows a bit more about the game than you, sitting next to you on the couch, helping you enjoy it more. He's not like, now let me break down this play here. But that's also like a valid way of doing things. That would be more how like Monty used to do League of Legends, and by extension now does Overwatch. Like, core concept, you must bring something to the viewing experience. If they could shut your voice off and it'd be no different, what are you doing?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I think that's actually probably the harder part of the skill set, or the technical skill set of a caster, right? Like, a lot of, you can like learn about the game, right? You read articles, you brush up on your game knowledge and stuff, but it's really hard to
you
teach
even learn how to use your voice better,
right? Like how do you tell somebody to make a joke or like banter? That's a lot. Those are those soft skills that are a lot harder to like teach somebody and make seem organic. I would think that's probably kind of the bigger thing, and absolutely agree with the friends on the couch. That's kind of the comment that Boop and I get a lot, like going all the way back, is you know, it's just like two people who are like really excited about the game, and then vicariously you also get to experience some of that excitement. Because like the biggest thing, I mean, beyond all of that, just going to go that extra step further, is like you have to be memorable, right? You're sure maybe you're adding information to the cast, or you're, you know, peppering in a joke here and there, but like you need to be a little bit distinct from all the other pairs going in. Otherwise, you know, what's to keep somebody from getting one of the pairs that is a little bit more established. And I think that's kind of one of the that's a lot more higher level up than just like saying like, oh, don't forget the names.
I dare say, don't worry too much about your individual style from the outset for what it's worth. Like, that is something that develops naturally over time. If anything, it can be worth just straight up trying to emulate another caster, because inevitably you're never actually going to
emulate, but never imitate, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Over time, you will find something that makes you a bit more unique. And also, I've got to disagree with you, Ham. I think you can be taught how. I'm going to teach you how to tell a funny joke right now. It's a knock joke. Okay, so you start it off.
Okay.
You start.
I'm ready. I'm ready, man.
You
start the joke. You start the joke.
I know. Okay. All right. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Hammy
That's one of my. I love that joke. I love it, man. That's one of my favorites. So you actually did something there that I think we can actually bring back to the conversation. So one thing that even just like, so this is the first time I've talked to Pixie in general. Something that he does really well is he talks with intent, right? And one thing that I know when we go over VOD reviews at BGG, something that I'm a broken record saying when I review other VODs is you have to speak with intent, right? If you don't speak with that confidence, I'm never gonna look at you like an expert.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
And so it's really important that when you deliver this information, it's coming from a place of confidence, right? It could be fake, that's fine. A lot of confidence is fake confidence, right? But if you just start delivering your stuff with intent behind it, where it has a meaning, it's gonna go somewhere. That's a really great start when it comes to getting on the mic with anything. That's public speaking, that's casting, that's a lot of stuff.
Sure,
Yeah.
but
All right, guys,
you have to be. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I do kind of need to move this along a little bit. So that's kind of been, where you can start in casting, how you can get started, and how you can, grind it out. Why it's so difficult, not difficult, but it's a lot of work to get into casting. What I really want to move on to now quickly, and I just want to remind everybody, if you do have questions regarding that topic, please drop them in the chat. Our guy Sci-Fi, he's there, he's picking those questions up for you, and we will try and get to them at the end of the show. Let's just move on quickly. I hate to cut this topic off, but we are going to run out of time if I let you guys talk forever.
Forecasters flapping their gums.
Like, oh my god!
Yeah,
I picked 4 people that talk for a living. What have I done? All right. So let's just move on to patch 1.3. And patch 1.3 is going to be quite exciting. We've already seen a little bit now that playoffs has begun. There's been a little bit of Ashe play, not too much in the other heroes that have had that buff. Like a little bit of Mercy, little bit of Roadhog. What do you guys think? Do you think that this trend will continue with having the new heroes, or not the new heroes, but the new hero and the buffs? And how do you think it's going to affect how playoffs is played I think we're in the second last week now, so there's still a little bit of time to go. So what impact do you think that these changes are going to be making?
All right.
Or are you going to teach us how to be analytical now, Pixie? I'm ready.
Well, here's what I will say, because I can only speak to my region in particular, and because we've been a sort of somewhat less goatsy region in the first place. Oh, I said goatsy in a sentence.
I know, I've done it in the past before. Yeah.
That's fine.
Goats-esque.
Yeah, goats-esque. Thank you. But what goats we are gonna see is gonna be fucking boring. I think I've used like 3 now. I'm sorry, I've gone way over the legal limit, but whatever. Look, I'm one of the stalwart defenders of like goats as the thinking man's game. Like, genuinely, there is a lot of layers to goats. It is very interesting. It is actually genuinely interesting to watch. I understand that a lot of people are sick of it, because it's like anything. No matter how interesting it is, if you're only seeing goats, of course you're going to be bored of it. We're blessed with a region where we don't only see goats, so we're not bored of it in that same way. Also, by the way, I love that unlike Dive and some previous metas, in goats, everything is just happening on the screen. Oh, isn't that just a beautiful, like, I don't have to like guess where the Winston, Diva, Tracer, and Genji are. I can actually just look and it's like, oh look, not in this game. But in all seriousness, the goats we are going to see, I think we've actually lost some layers of nuance. We've gained some other ones, but we've lost a lot of layers of nuance. One of the biggest factors in this is the Brigida change, the fact that you can't stun through Rhine shields. It's changed how Grav self-destruct combos can work. It's changed every single layer of the Ryan Brig tech that had been developed over time. This is like my favorite thing to watch as more and more goats was getting played, right? You're trying to set up Earth Shatter. So your Brig goes in to stun out the Reinhardts, they drop their shields. So what do Reinhardt start doing? The moment the Brig approaches, they spot the timing window, they drop the shield and Earth Shatter themselves as the Brig is going to look for a stun, knowing that the other Reinhardt is about to wind up an Earth Shatter. They predict the other Reinhardt dropping the shield for their Earth Shatter. They sneak theirs in advance, cancel out the other Reinhardt's Earth Shatter. So what do teams start doing then? Then the Brig starts faking it out. They start trying to bait out that Earth Shatter. We go so many layers deep. That is beautiful. I love watching a game like that. And if you aren't on the cutting edge of that, if your team cannot play whatever the current tech there is, you will not keep up. That is exciting to me. And people who complain about goats are obviously just not looking at that kind of stuff. That's now just not a factor at all. Oh well, you can kind of set it up. It's not as reliable. It's a bit disappointing. If the Seoul Guangzhou show match is anything to go by, the Lucios appear to be trying to make a lot more plays using displacement on the right click, sound wave.
Elk
being one. And there's a bit of a trailblazer in that. I think a lot of Lucios would love to get way more aggressive as well. I know that there's a number of them over in AU that are like Frogger being one such example that like they were like, yeah, I'll go right up in your face. I'll right click you out of here. I'll set up the play, guys. And I think that's going to be interesting. I think Lucio, just being a very mobile and dynamic character, can set things up in an interesting way, but it's not going to be the same nuanced tech because it's not as reliable as a Brig stun. And I think we have actually lost some entertaining layers to goats. I think we've made goats safer in a way, and also with Doomfist being a bit nerfed as well. One of the other great displacement tools, and we saw a significant amount of Doomfist in our region. It's kind of not there as well. I don't think we'll only see goats. I really don't know, but if we saw tons, dude.
Now, Doomfist game is strong here as well. Doomfist game is strong here as well. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Well, South America has some of the best Doomfists in the world, to be completely honest.
I mean, I think the whole idea is like, yeah, goats are going to be less consistent. Like you can't guarantee, you can't like rest your team play or like your like this whole fight strategy off of the back of a shield bash anymore. And that is you are going to be losing some of the mind gaming and the debating, which, the Brig debate is huge, right? It's the biggest thing in the universe. You bait that shield bash out, not only do you not have it anymore, but that means you can't get back to your team really fast. It's a big one. You're in enemy territory. But I think the whole idea is just to make other options viable, because the problem with goats is that if you play it really well at a high level, it is going to be that consistent. It's going to just be better, right? You have better ultimate value from, all of these big CC ults than any other composition. Because like, here's the thing, like why would you ever run like a true dive when you could just run goats and swap the Rhine out for a Winston and keep the ultimate charge for every other hero in that comp? It's a big value investment, in a game that is going to be decided by those ultimates. So, they're just trying to like balance out the tanking shielding value from the DPS, because holy cow, man, that Reaper buff. And everybody's getting super excited about the Reaper lifesteal buff, but I honestly think this is going to be like a meta for mid to long range hit scan. Like that Reaper's never going to get close to the tanks. You take off his dome right off the bat.
But let's clarify though, because I think we're talking about playoff patch, aren't we? Yeah.
Oh, I thought we were.
That's the thing.
But
actually,
but then just gone to PGR, that will be a goat skiller.
But like, if we're talking about playoff patches, we still have to consider that Brigida's stun is still going through shots. It is still going through shots. It's 1.30, not 1.31, I think.
You're quite right, actually. You're quite right. My apologies.
Yeah.
So we're still seeing this kind of things going on, and that's why I think goats continues being extremely powerful during playoffs. We've seen this in South American region where we're just continuing with a lot of goats, and when things are going pretty bad, the teams switch to goats again, and I think that's going to continue. But still, there are some innovation there. For example, we have the frozen goats with the May instead of the Diva, for example. We have the Doomfist goats, because Doomfist in this patch is still strong, right? So it's still viable, it's still useful. And if we look at, for example, Element Mystics from Korea and Sparkle, I believe that's the name of the guy, he's just amazing with Doomfist, and his team plays for him. And it's like the Jonak from Doomfist. So He's always with amazing timings, and I've had a discussion on Twitter with some South American coaches, and everyone's like, "Man, that guy is amazing. That guy's a god," and that's why he can use Doomfist that well. And we have a team in South America called Caverna, which is also using this composition and this strategy, and it's going pretty well. So I don't know if other teams are going to do this here because we're not watching their scrims, but we have some more options besides the anti-dive McCree Brigida composition, which is also amazing at dealing with Farah or at dealing with dives most of the time. So I still think we have options, but we have Ash, for example, right now, and Ash can fit pretty much into any composition that he is to have Widowmaker. So she just can run Widowmaker, Ash Tracer, Ash Double Sniper, or Ash whatever, Ash Farah. And we've seen some Ash Farah on Ilios in South America, and that worked pretty well with crossfires and everything. So we have options, but Goats is still there, and we can deny.
I want to throw out my my hot take out here, just by the way, and I kind of say this from a region that has not seen like only goats. Like, don't get me wrong, we've seen a lot. It's a strong team comp. There is no two ways about it. It is a very strong team comp. Reliability is a big factor, but also NA are bitches. Sorry. I'm going somewhere with this. In all seriousness, I am going somewhere with this. Goats is not mandatory. The people who have who are genuinely believing that Goats is mandatory are mistaken. Now, it is not as simple as, oh, lol, just don't play Goats. And I fully understand that if you're a team right now and you want your best shot as winning, I understand fully why teams are practicing Goats above all else and just trying to master that. But it's not mandatory. NA has this real habit of getting into holes. And no, seriously, you only need to look as far. Like, do you guys remember, like, back in the day when tournaments would do map drafts? We didn't see Assault at all. Full stop.
I
right?
remember that, yeah.
Because NA teams are bitches. And look, a lot of teams did this, right? But no, seriously, everyone was drinking the. I can't say it a fourth time. Everyone was drinking the Kool-Aid of Assault is bad. Assault is a bad game mode. It's badly. It's just bad. Shouldn't be in the game. So they avoided a whole quarter of Overwatch. There was this weird gentleman's agreement. And you know what's so daft about all that? I'm trying not to get too loud because it's only 7 a.m. You know what's so daft about all that? If just one team had got incredibly good at Assault, they wouldn't have had to ban it. Suddenly other teams would have to ban it. And then they can't also ban out other things they want. So actually, the counter would have been for them to just learn Assault. And then suddenly everyone knows Assault. And then suddenly we do actually start seeing it. No, the only thing that broke this ridiculous stalemate was the introduction of the current system as we have it, where every single game mode must be played. And I'm so glad it happens. I'm sick of not seeing a whole quarter of the game because NA teams are bitches.
I mean, I know at least one of our colleagues would really take you up on that Goats tank thing, because EU are the ones who are in love with tanks, man. We've seen Pharmacy, we've seen Sombra and stuff. Yeah. So
for sure. But my point is more, there is an attitude that does exist. I see it far more and this isn't really just NA, I see it far more in the West than I see anywhere else at all. This is a very NA EU thing where
I think I can break this down.
Entire competitive regions and look, Goats, don't take this as a one-to-one translation. Like the Goat situation is like the Assault map situation. I'm just using an analogy to try and illustrate the mode of thinking that these scenes seem to get themselves into, where it's like, well, what can you do? Goats is terrible, but we got to play it. It's exactly the same as going, what can you do? Assault, literally terrible. It should be removed from the game. Let's just not fucking learn it. Oh, I used a fourth one. Damn.
It was gonna come out, man. It was inevitable. I mean, you're like looking at this as like innovation is good and it's always good, but you don't want to be like the first at the head of the pack of lemmings. You know what I mean? Like there's like something.
But I think
I get why teams are doing it. Don't get me wrong.
This is
again, it's that consistency really pays off in the end for a lot of teams, right? As long as you can squeak by, it doesn't matter if you're at the head of the pack or in the middle of the pack, as long as you're still with the pack, right? So that's definitely one of the. I understand the attitude too, but like, you know, everybody gets tired of herbivores after a while.
Right. Well,
there's an H in that word, right?
What?
Herbivore.
Herbivores? Is that like aluminium?
Herbs
There's
in my
no
Guys,
I, man.
Yes,
There's no
aluminium.
I'm
name of
just
the
telling
element.
you right there. Just telling you
Okay,
right
Just
I'm
because
busy
you guys
patting
removed it
myself.
doesn't mean you're correct.
I'm actually
I really
laughing
want
my
to get
ass
this
off.
out.
Yeah, Boop's been trying to say something for 20 minutes. Y'all shut up.
Please.
So this is not just in Overwatch. This is in all sports leagues in general, right? Where someone does something and 80% of everyone does it because it's what mathematically is the best according to them, right? And so because of that, people are going to be more afraid to spend their time on something that they would not be of as high of a value in their opinion to maybe perform better. Right.
Yeah, John Galt did a great write up on exactly that, actually.
Yeah. And so it's just like, that's not just Overwatch. I've seen it. And American football is a great thing, how defenses have changed just in formation. Right. Like it wasn't until recently that the formation for college football followed NFL. Right. And so like, well, there are examples of things that don't work. There just isn't enough information around those things to confidently, as like someone who's trying to make money off of something like this, take that kind of risk, to spend that time to get good at something that could work. Because in the end,
when a team and an organization's survival is on the line, you want to make it into that top.
But there's something else. There's something else. For I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but we saw goats on Overwatch League, right? Right. So we saw a lot of goats on Overwatch League. So goats came out from a team that was like mono composition and didn't really play anything else. And even Overwatch League, with the best theory crafters in the whole world, had to adapt to it because it was so strong. So we are talking here about a composition that just came up and that simply exploited the patch and was so strong that took like 3 to 4 patches from Blizzard to kill it, or maybe to kill it, because we do not know yet how scrims are going on the 1.332. So it's like, I was gonna ask you guys if you think Overwatch League's gonna kill it for sure, or like for good, but still I don't think so, because we had a lot of time seeing goats on Overwatch League back in the day because it was so strong. And but usually I think that Contenders is the like the league that follows another top level league, which is Overwatch League in this case. And right now we are not with Overwatch League, so we have no one to follow. Let's follow Koreans, and Koreans are playing goats, so let's play goats too. But like maybe in the future, right now we're gonna have Overwatch League, and they're gonna change it. And if they do not, that's because goats is simply the best composition ever made within this patch. I think that's because it's like, why am I gonna like spend a lot of energy, a lot of time into playing something else, which requires me so much more coordination and synergy and effort.
A lot of risk too. You have to accept a lot of risk.
We had a team in South America called INTZ. They were just great at playing goats. They got a really good positioning on playing goats on other tournaments. But Contenders, because then they had a coach that wanted them to play something else than goats to try and counter the goats composition. Now they're going for trials, you know? So it's like, what exactly can you do just to try and pop off, just to show your skills, when it's so much better to play goats?
While I don't think it's required, like, while I agree with Pixie, like, it's definitely the path of least resistance.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And I don't think anyone can argue with that. And I mean, in all fairness, that's the same reason Overwatch League. Like, even though Overwatch League teams don't have that same reality of if you don't perform well enough, you're going home, they have a different reality. They have the reality of if you perform well enough, you make the big bucks. Yeah. Like there is, and you don't want to be the team that performs well across 3 entire stages, and then in the last one everyone's playing goats and you decide to be the team that's like, no, we're gonna spend this stage finding the counter, and then oops, we lost all our games and we didn't make it into playoffs. Even if they had,
and we didn't find the counter.
Even if by taking that route you actually do find the goats killer and you win every game, no coach wants to take that risk, because actually if they're the coach that suddenly lost every single game because they were just refusing to play a certain thing, it's going to be their ass on the line, right? Like that's I'm like, I know what I said before was very, very inflammatory and very aggrandizing. I know that on the individual level, people aren't just like sniveling wretches like, I'm scared of team compositions that are not goats. But because like the reality is, on the individual level, everyone's just making what appears to be the smartest possible decision with the information at hand and with the situations being as they are. And it's why this always happens, not just in, like Boop was saying, not just in esports, but in sports, in everything as a whole. This is just how things are. And it's quite normal. And that's also why complaining about the meta is daft, right? Because it is what it is, right? And eventually it's not going to be what it is, whether because of patch changes or strategy changes, or in sports, sometimes rule changes get introduced. No skin off my nose, man. I just learned to, find what is enjoyable about it, man. Like I think double sniper meta could be boring in a lot of ways because it was very dependent on who picked who. But at the same time, man, getting a first-person view on a Widowmaker popping the fuck off, that's my fifth one, was super entertaining. I just can't hold all these fucks in.
Too many fucks to give, man. Pixie.
I give so many fucks about esports. It's unbelievable.
I mean, and I totally agree, man. I'm gonna end it on like that positive note because like when we compare it to NFL or soccer or footy, as some may say, there's so many years of history.
Footy is
just football. Footy is its own thing. All right, we're not gonna go there then. But yeah, there's so many years of history to draw upon. That defenses change and stuff, but it's because of decades of innovation and seeing what works and doesn't. Overwatch is now going to be in its second season of out. Right? It's only been out on the market for a handful of years, and people are still trying to innovate, and it's going to go beyond metas, just like you said. Like, hey, dual sniper is going to work in these situations. I remember all the way back in like Team Envious, triple tank with Roadhog, right? Everybody played triple tank with Roadhog, and then the first time we saw that Earth Shatter into a Diva self-destruct, like, it was like found in Jesus. Now everybody's like, how can we get all of these like bomb combos, Earth Shatter, charge combos into the game, right? And it's gonna be going beyond just metas, but teams will start finding those little tricks that can be applicable in multiple situations, and that's just only going to deepen the game further. It's only a matter of time, right?
The only sport that's an exception to all this, fucking golf.
They just started letting them keep the flag in the hole when they putt.
That's a huge.
But there's
really getting
there's like. Oh.
Sorry, guys.
Now he's got to herd her cats.
I can see now. Like, why did we invite all these people?
I gotta move this along, so we can get to our last topic, and hopefully still get to that Q&A. Once again, quick reminder: if you do have questions, you can pop them in the chat. You can join our Discord and pop them in there. Let's get to our last topic, and hopefully we'll get to those questions. So, I want everybody to give me a quick summary of the top 4 teams in your region, and then we are going to do some fun bets. And basically what's going to happen is if you lose your bet, you got to take a little clip of yourself, and we will post it on the Grind Discord and on the Twitter of, the thing that you did because you lost your bet. So quickly, let's start with NA. We'll go NA, PAC, and SA. Your top 4 teams in your opinion and based on as many stats as you have. And then we'll quickly do the bets. So Boop and Ham, let's start with you guys.
Do you want to go first, Ham?
I was going to say, you want to go first?
I'll go first. Go ahead. Go ahead. Ladies first.
Hell yeah.
Okay. Age before beauty. Just kidding. Okay, I'll go first. Yeah, but I mean, top 4 teams. There's like the teams where you're like, okay, they have a shot, and there's teams where you're like, I really want them to have a shot, man. I just really want to see this go all the way. So of course, Fusion University and XL2. They were the ones battling it out in grand finals last season. Fusion, they lost both of their DPS, but they look just as strong. More beatable. But everybody says, oh, they look more. SKT looks more beatable this year. And then until they finally are taken down, right? Right? Yeah, exactly. So who knows? This could be the season, but they just stomped. They crushed ATL, who is at the top in terms of maps, actually. And I don't know, that could be the start of the turnaround of Fusion University is on that upward climb. XL2, of course, really good stuff from them, another solid, academy team. But I just, only one team can go through. But I'm still going to say Second Wind and First Gen would be my teams I would count in that top 4, at least in my heart. Right.
Hell yeah.
But they're fighting in quarterfinals. There's the 2 true kind of like community path to pro teams, right? You had First Gen, who used to be GOATS, the originator, right? And then Second Wind, who's also a trials team, came in bottom of the standings last season, and now they're at the top, and also an unsigned team, right? a real trials team. They remade their whole roster. Nobody's paying these folks, really much money to do what they love, but they made it all the way through. And unfortunately, though, in quarterfinals, one team's going to have to go. And but those would be kind of my standings.
Cool. Okay. I think mine are actually exactly the same, other than I would probably put first in over second wind because of the debacle that happened last week. Distractions are there, and it'd be hard for me to play under that kind of distraction. However, I don't think my top four are going to move on completely from the first round. So I'm going to have Fusion University XL2 in my final. I actually have Atlanta losing in the first round against Energy. And so the reasoning behind it is I think if Energy can come in, play at the tempo that Atlanta can play at too, then we're going to have a banger of a match, because Energy was flipping and flopping all season long. They were sixth. They were the middle of the road, but that last game they had against Second Wind that they won 3-1 was also among the same fashion that Fusion beat Atlanta, right? And so I think some people are underestimating them, and Energy could be a huge dark horse. They've performed well in playoffs before. And so I think that's going to be, even though I do think Atlanta is the second or third best team in tournament play here, I actually am taking Energy over Atlanta in that first round.
Energy ran that double main tank. Like, Smex looks better on Reinhardt than he did on D.Va almost. So that could be that new injection, right, of energy as playoffs come in.
I don't know if I'm actually allowed to do this, but anyway, I think that's a quick question. Do you believe that Uprising Academy has anything, has any chance against XL2? Because now Klaus and I think Fusions are at their gaming house, so they're at LAM. They do not have ping anymore.
If it wasn't GOATs, then yes. Then I think being because Klaus is playing Brig, right? And so while I think lag affects everybody.
Klaus is
he's arguably the best tracer in South America. And the other thing about, and he'll never get to show that off unless they do it on Busan or something again, right? But I don't think that would be the case, to be honest. I think they'll get better in terms of coordination and team play, but in the end, I think it's still an uphill battle for him.
I don't think it has anything to do with the players. Klaus is amazing, right? And a really good Pocket Sombra too. Asking, one of the best hit scan around. It is just going to be a question of when can they actually be playing the roles that they really prefer to be. And on top of that, all the moves, right? Just getting over jet lag, right, is going to take you several days, and that's going to be tough. Not to mention getting used to playing totally different way with no ping and stuff. But I mean, if nothing else, I'm really hopeful for Uprising for the next season. I think they're really going to blossom. I'm a beautiful butterfly.
Beautiful Boston fly.
All right, let's move on to PIC. Pixie, tell us a little bit about your teams.
So for literally the first time in our region's history, I include OPC in these when I talk about this, by the way, so keep that in mind. Arguably, we're one of the longer running regions for that reason. For the first time ever, we actually have the team that won also looking like they'll win again. And if it weren't for the fact that Flash Wolves won OPC Season 1 and then also played in OPC Season 2, it would also be the first time that we actually have a winning team returning full stop. Last season against Cyclops Athlete Gaming, who were kind of an audience favorite, so no one was really too bothered by it. But this came down to the full game 5, 99-99 on control, already tied 1-1. It was really intense. And CAG totally deserved to go through. But Xavier also kind of feel a little bit robbed. They would kind of like to get the match against Talon in the grand finals that they didn't get in Season 2, because that would have also been at the World Cup Bangkok qualifier in front of their home crowd. This is the closest they're going to get. Last up, I wouldn't call this a top team. This is just my dark horse pick. Man, Cyclone Coupling. Love me some Cyclone Company. This team is uncompromising in their desire to not play GOATs. And man, they are looking good. They actually beat Hong Kong Attitude in the last week of the season. Unfortunately, they come up against Talon straight out the gate. They're probably not going to go any further than that, but I would love for them to. This team, for any history, came 5th place in Chinese Contenders trials. They got picked up by, the slot rather got picked up by Team CC, who also own Shanghai Dragons. The team has been moved into the Pacific region, so this way Team CC kind of have 2 academy teams, and this is one of them. And I think the extra backing has really showed. They had a rocky start, and they're just looking better and better and better. They're one of the most interesting teams to watch. I think if any team is going to perform a major upset, it's going to be this one. I don't think it's likely, but it could happen. And I do have to mention GE Pantheon in all this. They are a very good team. And that's the one with Kefri on it, by the way, which means you can all tune into the semifinal. They're going to play against Talon, where they will lose against a better team. I have no beef with Kefri. I have no beef with this team. Talon are just better than them. But I don't mind. We're going to have a lot of viewers for that one match because Kefri's better.
Okay, so that was a pretty long breakdown. Yeah, so if I could just get literally 4 words, what were the top 4 teams?
Talon, Hong Kong Attitude, Xavier, and GE Pantheon.
Nice.
All right, Dark Horse Cyclone coupling.
Cool. Tonello, your top 4 teams in SA.
Yeah, for sure. So we already had some matches for our playoffs. So base tryhards are already on the semifinals with Isurus Gaming. So Sukiyo Nation and Fury are gone.
That's a crazy semifinal, by the way. The
fact that
Isurus and VTH are going against each other. If you guys don't remember, Isurus was Karma. Karma Gaming from a long time ago, who made some noise in
basically that's a semifinal between Brazilian World Cup team and Argentina World Cup team, basically, because there were a lot of changes, and we know that one change might compromise something, but still they're great teams, and for sure the 2 of the top 4 teams. So I wouldn't even mention Sukiyo Nation and Fury because they clearly were the upsets or the teams with a chance of upset. But talking about the other side of the bracket, we have looking for a Team Overwatch League and X10, Caverna, and Up. And on this match against LFT and X10, for sure, LFT looks much better. They are just crushing everyone. They've been crushing everyone for a long time right now, and they pretty much have the best goats of the whole tournament, the whole championship. And I think they're going to use goats. I think they still have a lot of other composition and strategies they can use to a high level. Not only think like, oh man, they are playing spam Ash composition. What the hell can we do? Let's go dive. I don't know. No, they're not this kind of team. They have everything under their control, and that for me is a huge advantage. On the other side, we actually have Chozin, which is a player from Up Gaming on the chat. So shout outs to Chozin. And I think their team is gonna win.
Man?
I mean,
hardest name to pronounce SA.
It's like I think Up Game is gonna win. I think Caverna has shown that they have skill, that they have a good level of Overwatch, but not quite as Up Gaming right now. So I still believe in Up Gaming. Then my finals, or rather my top 4, would be Base Tryhards, Isurus Gaming, which are already classified for semifinals, and looking for Team Overwatch League, and finally Up Gaming. But my finals would still be looking for Team Overwatch League against Base Tryhards. Yeah. So a lot of Overwatch World Cup players in there, and I'd bet for looking for Team winning the whole thing, because
that's a hot take.
That's for sure the upset. And I know that Base Tryhards players are gonna get kind of mad at me because they're
messaging you
like,
right now.
Yeah, right now, man. My DM's like, fuck it, and that's my first. But yeah, we have Base Tryhards just winning the whole thing for 2 seasons back to back, and they want to win it again. They want to win it again a 3rd time, but their changes were not the best ones. They had to adapt that after Klaus leaving and Alemão leaving for Overwatch League. Thank God there's a Brazilian and South American player on Overwatch League. And I don't know if their high level is still there. So I believe Base Tryhards are gonna have to just pop off much more than looking for Team Overwatch League has to, because looking for a team is just with an amazing level of coordination and with an amazing level of goats, or Zotes specifically with the Zenyatta. So they can pretty much use the Zotes, and that's it. I'm going to win because that's it. And I mean, this is my bet. But for sure, Up Gaming has a chance of upset, and Isurus Gaming have the chance of upset. And this is amazing because in South America, we pretty much had only Isurus Gaming maybe having a chance of winning against Base Tryhards for a long time, and now we have 4 teams with pretty much the same chance of winning the whole thing, and that's crazy.
It's
That
so
is
heartening,
crazy.
man. Isn't it crazy? Because like Neil and Honorato were, when we were casting South America, were like standout Ryan and Zarya. They like crushed everybody. And now, hey, gamers rise up, man. They're getting challenged.
Hell
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. I mean, base tryhards are gods too. I was talking about them at the beginning of this podcast, and I was like, they are gods. They are gods at the game. They're just amazing players, and for sure, I mean, they're most likely to win everything. But I think that the other teams have a much better chance, a much better shot right now at the third season than they had before. And this is great for us as casters, as viewers, as players, as anything, because we do not have like one god tier team and other teams trying to battle for themselves or against themselves. So, I mean, this is the best season we've had so far for sure.
All right. So for the bets, I'm going to try and keep it as simple as possible. Each of you are going to pick a region and a team that you think are going to win, and then you're going to tell us what you're going to do if you're wrong. All right?
Oh, all right. So
Sounds simple enough.
can
Try not
can
to
it
pick
be
your own region because I feel
all
like
right?
that's unfair.
All right.
Balls.
That's
Okay.
that's what
Yeah.
I was gonna ask you. All right.
Yeah, no. Don't pick your own region if at all possible. And
Mm.
yeah. So let's go with that. So I'm gonna start with Ham. So pick a region,
What?
pick a team, and what are you gonna do if you're wrong?
You always come to me first, and I think the slowest, Nari. That's not fair.
That's
Okay,
the
all right.
point.
Okay, here we go. All right. I'll just go out there. South America is going to be, the region that I know best besides NA. I'm going to say base tryhards take it. The old
Alright.
kings, well returned, and even though there are some upstarts, they know how to quash those peasant uprisings. And I saw Neil popping the hell off. I was able to tune in for a little bit of the quarterfinal
Yeah.
broadcast, and Neil was popping the hell off. Big Ryan energy. I'm a Ryan main too, so I'm gonna believe in my boy,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he's gonna be
Yes.
shattering. 9-man shatters so hard he brings 3 of them back from the
Yes.
dead. And there we go. That's going to be my guess. And if oh man, this is like, man, I get to set the bar of like shitty.
Well, and you get to be like super safe because it's base tryhards.
Yeah, it's
you
like,
can just do
let's
whatever you want.
bet. Let's
I
bet
know,
on the
it's
team
like
that
the
has
worst
won
you
two
really
eyes.
like.
I mean, like
I know
base
it's like the worst
tryhards.
hot take.
But base tryhards are looking so beatable this season, Boop. They look so
Yes.
beatable. Nah. But okay, here. Oh god, this goes against every fiber of my being.
Okay.
But if base tryhards do not win, if LFT Owl, which that would be amazing if they won, but if LFT Owl actually do win and base tryhards lose and they do not win the Season 3 SA Championships, I will do a shoey.
Hell yeah, dude.
Fuck me, man. God, got it. All right, buckling down.
Oh, that was your
Nice.
second fuck of the show. You're over the limit.
That was like your eighth.
I'm only scraping the surface, man. Oh
You know,
god. Okay, I will
just
do
gonna-
a shoey with one of my shoes. It has to be one of my shoes, though.
Yeah,
Could
I'm
it be
gonna
one of
take
Boot's
some like
shoes?
toe
Could be
fur.
one of my
It has to be my
shoes.
own.
I like
should
to
be my
imagine that
shoes.
boot shoes smell worse. I don't know why I get that impression from you. I can mail you one of my shoes. It's the middle of summer. I have very sweaty feet. I'm gonna break up
Dude,
the
that
NA
would be
duo
such an
here.
honor. I would just put it on Katrina's mantelpiece.
I'm
be
gonna
like,
I'm
"Look
gonna
at this
slip in the
shoe."
middle here and like break these two NA folk up for once, and I'm gonna put mine in there. I'm also gonna go after BR because it's a region that I never have a chance to watch because it's like an even worse time zone for me than PAX. So this is gonna be like this is completely based on what Tonello has just said. I actually think it's gonna be base tryhards. If they do not win, I will attempt to sing the entire Brazilian national anthem.
There you go.
Yes!
That's what I'm talking about, man. That's what
love
I'm
it.
talking about. And you can hit up
And,
on me.
yeah.
You can contact me if you.
I speak Spanish and not Portuguese, so that's going to be really entertaining if that
Hell
comes to
yeah,
pass.
At least you
Tonello's
speak
the
English,
accent, man.
like,
The accent.
He's
man.
about to
I
go
speak
play on
Chinese,
base
so.
tryhards.
All right, Boop, quickly. Who do you think and what are you gonna do?
So I'm actually sticking to the same region. I'm going to stick with South America.
South
Right?
America
Yeah.
rules, man. South America, best
I'm gonna
region.
say
Come on.
that Up Gaming make the finals. Up
Oh.
Gaming with my favorite doofist of the region, Edgigus.
Yeah, sure.
And if Up
Okay.
Gaming doesn't make finals, then Tonello gets to decide what color my hair will be.
There, okay, right.
Hell yeah.
Right. All right.
Nice.
Because I've been looking
listen
for
to
an
it.
excuse to dye my hair, and I trust Tonello.
I mean,
So,
now you have something direct personally with Josie in the chat, right? Because
I
he's
know,
gotta win.
right? Like he was the first pro I ever saw play Hammond competitively. So
Yeah.
parts out to him. But
I think you mean wrecking ball.
Ham is actually dying.
That's so stupid. That's so stupid, man. I fucking love it. Oh my god.
Hey, that's 3.
All right. Tonello, pick a region and a team, and what are you gonna do?
Yeah, sure. I don't still exactly what I'm gonna do, but I'm gonna pick an A because I don't really know anything about Pacific.
We
Sorry,
share
Pixie. I
some
mean,
same letters. That's why.
yeah, actually, yeah. That's the thing. I really wanted to bet on Prize and Academy because I know I'm cheering for my boy Klaus, but I'm not that crazy still. And
Wow.
and I mean, I've not been following everything from the NA contenders, but I think Fusion is gonna win it because I believe that their bracket is a little bit easier, maybe. And yeah, I think they're gonna win it. And I do not have any idea of what I might do if I am not wrong, if I'm not correct. So I mean,
suggestions.
feel free to help me. Yeah.
Let's go.
something to
Suggestions.
do with your facial hair by the time it comes
Oh, you have
Oh,
to.
man.
You have to
Dye it
shave one
purple.
side.
Blizzard's gonna fire me. I wouldn't do it.
Oh,
I lose my job.
I'm gonna say you have to grow out a porn stash.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
All right.
All the way down.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I want to see you
Alright.
looking like
Full
the gay
handlebar.
cop from the Village
All right.
People.
I don't know if my genes are capable of it, but I'll try definitely. So that's great.
That's why, right? Because it's like, who
All right.
knows how it's gonna turn out.
All right.
Nice.
That's totally acceptable. Thank you, Pixie, for helping. me.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. I think I need to weigh in as well. I'll give NA some love.
Hey.
And
Ouch!
It's
you know what I would, but I would have
long
just
day.
voted for Carefree, and then I know I'm gonna lose. So, because we've had him on the show, and he's my boy. Now he's my boy now. Everybody that's on the grind is officially my boy. So,
All right.
yeah, hell yeah, you guys are officially my boys.
I've always wanted to be a boy.
If I were a boy.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll give NA some love, and I feel really bad because I know one of the coaches on first gen, and I'm not gonna vote for you guys. So sorry.
Oh no.
You didn't even have to say that explicitly. You could have just voted for who you were going to vote for. You had to specifically say,
Yeah,
I'm
of
not
course.
voting for
No,
you.
I'm not picking you
Yeah,
guys.
I'm not voting for
Is
you.
that, are you
Dennis.
just going to list all the teams that you're not voting for first? Just so they know.
No, just first gen. Just first gen.
It's personal.
All right, I will vote for XL2 based on what I heard from Ham and Boop. So hopefully they don't let me down. Yeah. And if I don't win, I will eat a chili pepper, like one of those red chili peppers.
The habanero.
Okay. We need to be specific. Habanero, ghost peppers.
So let's do this. Let's do this, Nauri. You will eat.
I grow habaneros. I'll send you one.
Yeah, and you will
Wow.
eat it
Choose
before the
peppers.
next episode, and you have to do the whole episode while eating peppers.
Oh my god.
All
Oh.
right.
Wow.
There's a
Or
show
you
on that,
eat
right?
a pepper
There
at
is a
the
show on
beginning,
that.
and then you have to host it.
Okay.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a challenge.
Okay. Absolutely. I will do that. Cool. All right. I think we've got time for like 2 questions from the chat. So I'll just quickly pick. Okay, here's a cool one from one of the coaches of HSL Academy, Eli. Are there any players in general or from your region that you think should have been picked up for OWL and weren't?
I've got a quick list here. I'm just going to jump right in with this. I'll be honest, a lot of the really good players that have ever played in this region have kind of already been picked up, like the entirety of Ardiant, a chunk of the members of Detonator Korea, some of the guys from Blank. They ended up getting picked up out of Australia, like Trill, but they've predominantly played in this region. In terms of players that are like now left behind, Shailin on Hong Kong Attitude, got to shout him out. Perfect, who is now on Hong Kong Attitude. Once upon a time, Bacon Jack. That's like another lifetime now. But I think if he is ever to make a return to the game, he's a shoo-in for Overwatch League. He's an incredible player.
All right, the rest of you?
Sure. I mean, South American is full of talent, and like a lot of the guys from base tryhards should be on Overwatch League, I believe, such as Colero is amazing. Lico has recently won the award for best Overwatch player from Brazil. So I mean, he's just amazingly skilled. Neo and Honorado as well. I don't think Lobok and Wings are still ready to Overwatch League, although they are. I mean, they have a lot of potential, but I don't see them there right now. Also from Misura's game, and we have DDX, which is just amazing. We have Extravert, who is also a great player. Out of looking for Team Overwatch League, Ole is one of the best supports of our entire region and maybe one of the best supports in the world. Fast is just a very clever guy and amazing. Pizza Lover is also great. So I mean, we have a lot of guys like Chozin's just gotten better so much, and his potential is amazing as well. Edgas, TH7 or TH7. So I mean, South American, although we are kind of isolated from the rest of the world in terms of being able to scrim with other teams from the rest of the world, I still believe that these guys have potential. Okay, maybe they're not like if they're the best player from the South American region, they might not be the best player from the of the world. And I know it's true, and I know. I mean, I am considering this, but there's so much potential, and like there's so much that can be done with these players because of their mechanical skills, because of their sense of competition, of their passion to the game. And I really want to see more players from South America in Overwatch League. Right now, we have Klaus on Horizon Academy, so it's not exactly Overwatch League, but he might be there next year when he turns 18. And we have Alemão from former base tryhards player who's also there, and he's just one of the best shows in the world for sure. So I mean, we have a lot of talent, we have a lot of players. I really want to see them as quickly as possible on the in the Overwatch League, because I really believe that they deserve, not only because there's a Boston Uprising that I want new players to to practice with them and to make them just gods in 2 months. Not only I don't expect only invites from these teams that want new players and new talent. I really expect invites from other teams that want great players as well. And yeah, I mean, South America is just full of talent, in my opinion. I'm biased in saying this, but anyways.
Okay, BoopNado.
So I'm gonna go with some because NA is full of people who used to be in Overwatch League too.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
it's a little complicated. So I'll actually go with some Path to Pro people that I think could end up in Overwatch League one day. Karkar, who just got onto Philadelphia, the Fusion University. I think Karkar's got a ton of potential, could make it one day. I think Akawa on Second Wind has a ton of potential as well. And then other than that, the other one for me is Bernard on Fusion University as well, who I think is one of the more underrated divas, who's hyper consistent. And really anyone on Fusion University, I think, could get there as well. Because Neist in a different meta, I think, like on that Pharah was absolutely dominant last week. So those would be some of my top picks if I'm excluding those who have already been in Overwatch League.
Yeah, I'd have to hard agree with the Bernard pick. I would say Wu Yao, except he's already kind of tasted the Overwatch League, so we got to stick to the. So you kind of okay. Well, you kind of got like a lot of off tanks and DPS, so I'm just gonna shout out Goliath and Alarm. Like speaking of like fragging Zenyatas, they're like NA Jonak, especially Alarm. Like this guy is just the real deal. He's been around since like Apex. And one of the coolest things ever was we were casting the Fusion University ATL game. Both of them, top teams. They're like, oh, it's going to be a slobber knocker of a fight. And you know who was actually making a huge difference was Alarm, their Zen player. Like we know this guy frags out, but he was finding Dogman's head from across the map like more times than not. And Dogman is another great Zen player who I could definitely see in Overwatch League, but Alarm was really giving him the time of day. And so would really like to see Goliath, Dogman, Alarm. They could easily be in Overwatch League.
Hell yeah. All right, I'm going to take it to one last question because Boop needs to catch a flight. And I think that this is going to be a fun one. So this one comes from Lafon. And he says, what do all of the guests think the most competitive map type is? We did touch on this briefly, but
Jesus, this is tough.
This is pretty interesting. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with gut. I'll go first, so you guys can think, because I have like my gut.
Go ahead, please. I need to think.
In my head, it's assault, because of just how it's it's standard, right? There's ways to go in. I think it's the easiest viewing experience as well. But I think in terms of actual upsets that are happening, where a team that might not be as good can take the victory, is in control. I think control can like devolve into some scrappiness, and individual play styles can come into play a little bit more. So that would be my answer.
It's funny. I would actually have kind of the opposite opinion between those two game modes, right? I would actually say, Assault is probably one of the modes where a lower team can easily kind of snatch a map. Reason being, look, if you're consistent at Assault, if you're consistently good at holding on defense and consistently good at taking on offense, you are going to more times than not win Assault. If you are not consistent at doing that, you could still just pop here's my 9th one, pop the fuck off, and cap out and do it in an incredible time and be able to just kind of stall out the other team, whatever, whether it goes to time bank or not. And I don't think that makes it like unbalanced or anything. I actually think it's one of the interesting things, right? Because there's always going to be this arms race of like, how consistent do you need to be until those less consistent teams are not a threat of stealing that match off you? I would actually say, and this is in quite a vacuum, I would like to think that the most competitive game mode is probably Control, purely because it's the only one that is inherently symmetrical, at least until the point is capped by someone. And then you end up in this very interesting situation where teams are flip-flopping back and forth between essentially playing the attacker and playing the defender. But it's not that hard and fast, right? Like, the team holding the point can maneuver themselves such that the other team ends up on the point, and then that team, without ever losing it, attacks them on the point. Positionally speaking, you can't really get that on any map with a payload, because the moment you're off the payload, it's moving, you're losing distance, it's not great. Like you sort of can, but not in the same way. I think Control kind of opens itself up to the most varied ways of approaching a defense as well as an offense, specifically of approaching a defense more so. Like even on something like Assault or Hybrid with the first point cap, like you've got to play on that point. There's very little, like that's where C9ing comes from, right? Like there's very little wiggle room in that regard. There are some strategies that have teams off the point for a little bit, but man, are they risky. If it goes wrong, you just lose. You lose so fast, and you do give up cap percentage if you're not careful. I would say Control is, at least on paper, the most competitive.
I can certainly see that. Control's the most scrappy, right? Like you don't need to necessarily take, depending on what comp you're running, depending on what map, you don't have to take those set team fights. If you get
remember double Tracer, double Winston, double Lucio?
Oh god, no limits.
That was 10-minute overtime.
Oh lordy me.
6
and then sometimes they pull out the double Reaper. Die. But Control certainly is up there for me. I think like intuitively, I would say Hybrid actually, because a lot of teams are really good at escort. And a lot of teams are really good at like attacking points, but some of them can't quite mesh those two, right? Because on hybrid maps, your objective or what you're playing for changes depending on where you are in the map, right? So take Nibani, for example, one of the hardest point A's to take in any hybrid map. And then once you take that point, how many times have we seen the team spawn capped right off of that right side room off of point A, and they can't make any distance on that payload? The objectives change. They got to think differently. The defensive team is going to be taking different kinds of fights. So intuitively, that's what I would say. But I was actually just browsing over.gg really quickly to take a look at kind of the NA teams and where they stand statistically. And I would say I would actually agree with Boop. Looking at the numbers, Assault seems to be the most difficult map. The teams who are really good, the Fusion Universities, XL2 is undefeated on Assault. Wow. Versus, say, a team like Congarna or Skyfoxes. They struggled on all the other maps, of course, but they didn't quite make it to playoffs. But the biggest difference is the Assault win-loss percentage. Like Skyfoxes have like a 20% win rate on Assault. And I think that's kind of like the big difference maker, right? Like these teams were really coordinated, especially with goats. You go into assault, you have to take those clean team fights. It can't just be a scrappy battle because the defensive advantage will be too great. You have to win. Not only you have to win, but you have to win very cleanly and quickly. And that's going to be a mark of a good team who can string together those combos, finally get the wipe, and cap the point.
Man, LaFon has knocked it out of the park with this question.
Yeah, it's a good one.
I mean, I believe that it's hybrid as well, because if you take a look at assault, you have this one control point, 7-minute type of map, because the first one is going to go anyways, and if you full hold the first one, like, the attack team is just shit. So
it wasn't competitive in the first place, right?
I mean, so I believe that assault is like a one control point, 7-minute run, heavily biased towards the defense. That's why I don't think it's that competitive. If you look at control maps, I mean, it is competitive until after the first fight, because after it, you just have to use your ultimates well, because the advantage will be there for you. And even though you can get to 99% and lose a fight, you can just come back and have like the whole 2 minute, for example, 2 minute or 2 minute and a half to come back and win again, and just one fight will do the job. So I think control is competitive in many ways, but if you are a really good team, you are not going to let go of that advantage, of that initial advantage, and it's been proven. And also, control historically is the only map that had to be, not the only map, but one of the only type of maps that had to be changed in its core mechanic, because Assault had a lot of changes in terms of respawning and all, but control had to go from a best of 5 to a best of 3, because mathematically a best of 5 would be biased in a way because of percentages of anything. I don't really recall, but it had to be changed, not only because of the length of the map, because hybrid maps or 2CP maps can take like 10 or minutes or whatever, but control maps had to be changed in its core mechanics. So that's why I think hybrid is the most competitive one, because you have the point thing where you have the defense just taking advantage in positioning, and then you have the attack team having to go through all of these capture the point style, which is one of the most competitive ones. And after this, you have the whole second point thing that really sets up the pace for the whole map. Because if you lose a lot of time in there, or if you give the opposite team a chance to really defend in there, you're just I mean, sorry, but you're just fucked, because the second point is what really sets the pace for it. Once you have to just go past it with the least amount of fights possible, because if you do not do that, although you get the advantage of ultimates, you have to spare that you have to spend that on the second point, and then the third point gives you less time. So there are a lot of layers, a lot of strategic layers on hybrid maps, and that's why I think that is the most competitive kind of map. And why not Squart? And that is because Squart is so easier to full hold, because if you get the payload to a point where it's much harder for the attacking team to take positioning, you pretty much are going to get full hold. Or I mean, you are not going to get full hold only if you can have some economic fights and force some ultimates on the other side, and while not using your own to have some counters after this. But if you take a look at Bastion compositions, for example, on Squart maps, they are only good for the first take of it, because if you get the payload like far enough not to be able to go back to it, Bastion's only gonna suck. So that is kind of a bias that can happen for defense, and that's why hybrid, in my opinion, is the best.
And the third point of hybrid too, like the spawns are so far away from the attackers, it's essentially like taking assault, right? You have to again take a really clean fight, and everybody has to be alive, because there's no way a stagger is going to get back to the team in time. So
I do like how we said everything.
Yeah.
What's the point of that side?
Except Escort. Nobody thinks Escort is hard.
All right. I actually love that. I love that you all had your different opinions, and that's amazing. And I want to, unfortunately, we need to wrap this up. I'm so grateful for all of you guys being here. This has been a phenomenal episode. We had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, a lot of tech issues, but hopefully we can get that sorted out once we get the VOD out. Thank you again so much for being here. Thank you, Trinok, for being our producer for this evening, stepping in when our usual producer. Hell yeah. Captiano couldn't be here this evening, so Trinok stepped in graciously. Before we do the full send off, I just want to remind everybody, European Contenders, unfortunately we had to record during the first game of European Contenders, but the second game is starting in like 15 minutes and it's going to be a good one, so you guys need to head on over there. As I mentioned, this is the second last week of playoffs. There's a lot of playoffs happening this week and next week. It's going to be really exciting, some really tough matches. The schedule is up on the Overwatch Contenders website. So, guys, please go and check that out and be ready for the next episode because we will be discussing the teams that won, the teams that didn't make it, and talking a little bit more about how and why that happened. So, yes, thank you once again for joining all of us. I hope you guys have had a fantastic start to 2019, and I look forward to the rest of the year with all of you. And once more, thank you to the guests. Yeah, that's it from us. Bye, guys.